With the election this Saturday, you may have thought about which party you're going to vote for, but have you thought about the referendum? Do you know what all the different abbreviations and voting systems mean? Today, I'm going to explain them to you, so you can make an informed choice in the referendum this Saturday. So, the referendum itself is to choose whether we want to keep MMP as our voting system, and if not, what voting system we would like to change to instead. Choice-wise, we have STV, which is single transferable vote. We have FPP, which is first past the post. We have SM as supplementary member. We have PV as preferential voting. And we have the one that we all know and love, MMP, which is mixed member proportional. We'll start with FPP, which is first past the post. Yes, I did incorrectly have that as an F in the previous bit, please forgive me. It is FPP. And with FPP, you get one vote. There are 120 electorates, and each electorate represents a seat in Parliament. Your one vote is to choose an MP for your electorate seat. They win by most votes. They do not have to get 50%, it is just the electorate, the candidate who gets the most votes. With FPP, the larger party, and especially the winning party, will usually gain a larger percentage of seats than the percent of their votes. So these are generally not equal. The smaller parties can end up with no seats at all, unless they have strong support in a particular electorate. So therefore it is pretty hard for small parties to get seats in Parliament. It is therefore quite easy for larger parties to govern alone without the need for agreements with other parties or a coalition. Next we have PV, which is preferential vote. You get one vote. It's same as again, there's 120 electorates and each represents a seat in Parliament. With your one vote, however, you will rank the candidates for your electorate in order, hence preferential vote. So you will put, a 1 next to the candidate you want most, and so on and so on and so on, ranking all the candidates in order. To win, the candidate must have a support of over 50% of the voters. So if no one gets 50% of the votes in their electorate, the candidate with the least votes is dropped, and then their supporters who voted for them, their second choice, then gets a vote. And then if still no one has 50%, it will carry on, and then the next person is dropped, and then their second or third, until one person crosses 50%. With preferential voting, if your first choice candidate doesn't win, your second and third and so on can still help them to be elected. However, larger parties, and especially the winning party, will usually gain a larger percentage of seats than the percentage of their first preference votes. And smaller parties can yet again end up with no seats at all, unless they have strong support in a particular electorate. So therefore, yet again, it is hard for smaller parties to get seats, and it is also easy for a large party to govern alone without need for coalition or agreements. Next, there is SM, which stands for supplementary member. Now with this, you get 2 votes. And these 2 votes, one is for your electorate, MP, and the other is for a party. There are 120 seats in Parliament, and 90 of these are electorate seats, and the other 30 are party list seats. So with the one electorate MP vote, 3/4 of the seats in Parliament are filled this way. So because of this, larger parties, and especially the winning party, will usually gain a larger percentage of electorate seats than the percent of their electorate votes. And the second vote is the last quarter of the seats and is a party vote. And so with this vote, if a small party got 10% of this vote, it would still get 10% of those seats, so it would get 3 seats of the 30 party list seats. And it doesn't matter how many electorate seats it is won, they are added on to its party seats. So with this system, small parties are likely to be represented in Parliament, but their share of seats will be less than their percentage of votes. One larger party is likely to win more than half the votes, so mostly they can govern alone. However, sometimes they do need a coalition or agreements with other parties. STV stands for single transferable vote. Obviously, single transferable vote means you get one vote. There are 120 seats in Parliament, and there are 27 electorates, and depending on how many people live there, they will have between 3 and 7 MPs. And each party can have more than one candidate in each electorate. So to vote, you choose your candidates in order of preference. You can choose just your first preference, or if you want, you can order all of them, so you can choose as many as you like. However, with your one vote, you can either do it this way, or you can vote just for your preferred party and then accept the rankings that they will have for the candidates. To win, a candidate must get a minimum number of votes, called a quota. It varies by electorate, so on how many voters there are and how many MPs there are. So if Party A's candidate gets more votes than the quota that they needed, then the voters' second choice candidates gets their leftover votes. Usually these will go to another Party A candidate, so they can both be elected for the electorate. Then, however, if there is still another seat, then the lowest candidate gets eliminated and their voters' second choice candidates get their vote, and then they get elected alongside the others. So they're elected in order. So this Party A member will be elected first, then say for example the second Party A member, and then say Party B member who took some of the Party C member who got eliminated. With STV, the party's share of seats roughly reflects the share of the vote. So small parties and independents with strong local support can be elected to Parliament. With STV, governments are often made up of coalitions and parties' support agreements. So those are the extra choices. However, what is MMP? The system that we have currently is MMP, which stands for Mixed Member Proportional. With MMP, there are 70 electorates and there are 120 seats in Parliament. To get 2 votes, your first vote goes for the party you prefer, and this largely decides the number of seats that each party will have in Parliament. So, say a party got 40% of the votes, the party would get 40% of the seats. Now the second vote goes to your local MP who will represent your electorate. Whoever gets the most votes becomes your MP. They don't have to get more than half, it's just whoever gets the most. However, with the party vote, the party must get 5% to get into Parliament. They either need 5% of the party vote or they need an electorate seat. For example, if Party A got 25% of the vote, and they would get 30 seats. Now these 30 seats would first be filled by their electorate seats and then by their list MPs. So their electorate seats are not additional to their party seats. Say the other party B got 10% of the party vote but then no electorate seats, they would get 10% of the seats but they would just all be filled by their list MPs. Now say there was another party, Party C, who only got 4% of the vote, which is under the 5% threshold, meaning that they wouldn't get the party vote seats in Parliament. However, they got 1 electorate. And this means that they still get to have 4% of the seats, and just one of those will be filled by their electorate MP. MMP, as its name states, is mixed member proportional, meaning that it is a proportional system, and that you will find both big and small parties in Parliament. And usually the government is made up of coalition with support agreements and with other parties to get majority, as without the other party's support, they would not have the majority to make a government. I hope it's given you some idea of the options to vote for in the referendum. Personally, I have no problem telling everyone that I support MMP. I think it works fine. I think that it is definitely the fairest of the systems. This is the system that is the best for getting a really good proportion of a good representation of parties in the Parliament. Before I go, I have a question for everyone. Do you know where you'll be voting at? Because if not, visit the site down in the doobly-doo and find the polling place closest to you. Luckily for me, I have one right next door, so I know where I'll be voting. Anyway, happy voting this Saturday, and DFTVA.